Hey there, viewers. It was supposed to be just another assignment. Visit the campus, ask a few questions, and leave. But the deeper the investigation went, the more disturbing things became. What was found inside Oprah's Africa school wasn't just hidden, it was shocking. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The invitation I never applied for. I wasn't supposed to be doing this. I work front desk at a dental clinic just outside Atlanta, and I'm the kind of person who forgets her coffee in the microwave like 3 times before noon. The last time I traveled alone, it was for a cousin's wedding in Tampa. I don't even have a passport picture I like. So when I say I don't know how I ended up on a plane to Johannesburg with a manila envelope tucked in my bag and a pit in my stomach, I mean it. The envelope had come 2 weeks earlier. No stamp, just slid under my apartment door like it was trying not to be seen. I thought it was a bill at first, or one of those creepy flyers for carpet cleaning. But when I opened it, I remember how everything in my body just paused. Not in fear exactly. It was like my nerves had been handed a mirror and told to look at themselves. Inside was a single photograph, blurry, black and white, like it had been photocopied too many times. It showed a metal gate flanked by brick columns and a small brass plaque that read, Oprah Winfrey, Leadership Academy for Girls. I didn't know what I was looking at. I knew the name, everyone did. But the photo felt wrong. There were no students, no sun, just this heavy, silent kind of stillness. Below it, a yellowed index card with typewritten words. They never graduated. They were let go. And taped beneath that, a laminated card, my name on it, my full name, with a scannable code and the word, Temporary Access Observer. I didn't tell anyone. Not even my sister. She would have laughed or said it was some TikTok prank. But something in me, and I can't explain this part, recognized the card. Not the picture, not the note, the card. Like I'd seen it before in a dream I wasn't supposed to remember. I tried looking the school up again. I remembered hearing something about it a long time ago, a scandal or something. But the official site just talked about excellence, empowerment, leadership, blah blah. No mention of anything weird. But when I typed Oprah School controversy into search, a bunch of old headlines popped up. A dorm mother was arrested years ago. A student gave birth on campus. There were parent complaints about strict rules, cold buildings, limited visits. Still, that didn't explain why someone wanted me to go there. I called the number listed for the academy. A woman with a South African accent answered. When I asked if someone had sent me an access pass, she said no, said they didn't do that. But when I read out the code, there was a pause, a long one. Then she said, "Hold for a moment." I waited. Then the line went dead. That's when I bought the ticket. I told work I had a family emergency. I packed light. I brought the envelope, my old Sony camera, and the silver pen my dad gave me when I turned 18. Don't ask why, I just needed something to hold on to. The whole flight, I kept rereading the card. My fingers wore the edges down until it looked like I'd had it for years. Maybe I had. The drive from Johannesburg to Henley-on-Klip took a little over an hour. Dusty highways, wide open stretches, then finally this turn-off road lined with sun-bleached trees and thick iron fencing. I saw the school's name carved into stone as we passed a long, winding driveway that felt more like an entrance to a private lab than a school. At the front gate I got out. The driver didn't wait, didn't even speak, just drove off like he knew not to linger. The guard at the booth was an older man, uniform, neat, but his eyes didn't match the rest of him. They were glassy, like he hadn't slept right in years. I handed him the pass. He scanned it, blinked at the screen, looked at me, then scanned again. Finally, he handed it back. "They said you'd be early," he muttered, like it annoyed him. "Others usually come later, when the play's already started." "What others?" I asked, but he just buzzed the gate open. The road curved slowly, and with each bend more of the campus came into view. Tall white buildings with slanted roofs, perfectly trimmed hedges, brick paths too clean to be natural. It was beautiful, sure, but too perfect. Like no one lived here, just rehearsed. A woman met me at the front office. She wore a navy blazer with the OWA Lee crest pinned neatly on one side. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Told me her name was Mrs. Malapo, that she handled visitor orientations. When I asked again about who sent the invitation, she paused just like the lady on the phone had. "We don't send out invites like this," she said. "But you're here now, so you may observe for 2 days. You will not speak to students without clearance." Something in the way she said observe made me uncomfortable, like I wasn't just here to see, like I was here to record. She gave me a thin visitor lanyard, not the same as the laminated card. This one had no name, just a symbol, a spiral, etched in faint silver, so faint I almost missed it. My guest room was in a side building, small bed, desk, no mirror, no TV, just one large window overlooking the performance hall. That's what they called it, not auditorium, performance hall. At night, it stayed lit, but I never saw anyone go in or out. The curtains moved sometimes. I couldn't tell if it was wind or someone watching. The first day, I was shown around. Dining hall, computer lab, music room, all spotless, all quiet. Too quiet. The girls I saw wore matching uniforms and moved in pairs, not laughing, not whispering, just walking, like they were rehearsing steps. I waved at one. She glanced at me, smiled just barely, and kept walking. I wanted to talk to her, but Mrs. Malapo was always nearby, watching. After dinner, I tried asking again why I was there. "I'm not press," I said. "I'm not part of an NGO or education board." And she didn't even blink. Some are sent because they asked questions, others because they didn't. The ones that arrive early usually forget which they were. That night I couldn't sleep. Something kept scratching at the back of my mind. A memory, maybe, or a dream. I got up to use the bathroom. No mirror, of course, just a square where one might have been. I touched the wall. It was warm. When I got back to the room, my envelope was gone. The photo, the note, even the silver pen, all of it. But on my bed was a new card. Laminated. Same name, same access code. This time, under it, Cycle 4, performance pending. I stared at it until my vision went blurry. I think I cried, but I don't remember the sound. Just this pressure in my chest, like someone was watching and waiting for me to notice my lines. Like I was standing in a play I hadn't auditioned for. And the curtain was about to rise. Chapter 2, her name was never on the list. The second morning didn't start with an alarm. It started with humming. I'd been lying in that narrow bed, eyes open, listening to the kind of silence that makes your ears ring, when the sound floated through the window. Soft, repetitive, and almost too faint to catch at first. A girl's voice, maybe, or a recording. It wasn't music, just this low, steady hum, with notes that dipped in and out like a lullaby being remembered out of order. Opened the window but saw nothing. The courtyard was empty, the sky washed in that dusty early morning light. I pulled on my sweater, clipped the visitor pass back to my shirt, and headed out. At breakfast, the other staff nodded politely, but didn't speak. They always sat at the far end of the hall. The girls sat together too, spaced out evenly at long tables, their backs straight, their hands folded, no phones, no chatter. Every movement seemed timed, like they were listening to something I couldn't hear. I didn't see her until after the meal. I had wandered off toward the old arts wing, a building the orientation booklet didn't mention, half covered in vines and dust. The door creaked when I opened it. The hallway smelled like chalk and wood polish. And that's when I saw her. She was sitting alone in one of the old classrooms, by a tall window, legs swinging slightly beneath the desk. A small girl, maybe 14, dark-skinned with tight braids pinned neatly down the side of her head. She didn't look surprised to see me. "You're the observer," she said. I blinked. "Yeah, I guess I am." She didn't say anything for a bit. Then she looked down at her lap, fiddled with something, and held it up. A sketchbook, worn at the edges, smudged from charcoal or pencil. She held it like it was something alive. "You can look," she whispered. I hesitated, then took it gently. The first few pages were rough outlines, hallways, doors, girls in profile. Then the drawings got sharper, faces with hollow eyes, a tall staircase spiraling downward, a courtyard at night with no shadows, and then portraits. Rows of girls, all different, some smiling, some staring dead ahead. But what chilled me most was that every portrait had a name written beneath it. First names only. Then a line crossed through the name in thick black graphite, one after another. 20, maybe 30 pages. I flipped back to the beginning. "Are these your classmates?" I asked. She shook her head. "They're not here anymore." "You mean they graduated?" She looked up then. Her eyes flat, too still. "No, they rehearsed too early, and they were let go." Let go. That phrase again, like it meant something more than being expelled, like it was final. I glanced toward the door, suddenly paranoid we weren't alone. "What's your name?" I asked. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Finally, she said, "Lalo." I nodded slowly. "Is that short for something?" But she didn't answer. She turned the page in the sketchbook to a fresh sheet and started to draw again. I watched as her hand moved fast, practiced, confident. She didn't even sketch an outline first, just pressed dark lines into the page. I leaned closer and felt my stomach twist. It was me. She was drawing me. Standing in the hallway, holding a card. My face was blank, but she shaded the edges of the paper in tight, aggressive strokes until the background seemed to press inward. Then she added something above my shoulder, a small spiral, almost like a symbol. "You don't belong here," she said, not accusingly, more like a fact. "I know," I replied. "I didn't apply for any of this." She looked out the window. "That's why they'll notice you." Before I could ask what that meant, I heard footsteps outside, not rushing but deliberate. Lilo's hand shot out and grabbed the sketchbook. She slid it under her uniform just as the door opened. Mrs. Malapo stepped in, smiling tightly. "There you are," she said, looking at me. "We had a session scheduled for visitors at the library. You must have gotten lost." "I was just talking to..." I turned, but Lilo was already standing, smoothing her skirt, eyes down. Mrs. Malapo placed a hand on her shoulder. "This one is always wandering. Aren't you, dear?" Lilo didn't speak. She looked at me once, just a flash, and I saw something there. A warning, maybe, or a goodbye. "I'd like to speak with her a little longer," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "I'm afraid that won't be possible," Malapo replied, her smile hardening just a bit. "The students have rehearsal." That word again, rehearsal. I wanted to ask what exactly they were rehearsing for, but Lalo was already being ushered out. She didn't look back. The rest of the day passed like a fevered dream. Every room I was led into felt more curated than the last. Girls playing cello in perfect unison. Girls coding silently in spotless computer labs. A classroom where students practiced delivering speeches. But the teacher didn't correct their tone, just their posture, their smiles, their pace. Every interaction felt like a scene. Every corner of this school felt like a stage set dressed up to look lived in. But behind the polish, behind the marble and motivational posters, something was missing. That night I sat at the desk in my room and opened my notebook. I was trying to write down what Lilo had said, trying to sketch the spiral she'd drawn behind my shoulder. I didn't know what it meant, but it was starting to feel familiar. Like I'd seen it somewhere before, but hadn't been allowed to remember. I flipped through the guest info packet again, looking for a full student roster. It wasn't there. Nothing with student names, just generic stats. I remembered one of the office clerks had shown me the alumni wall, plaques with pictures, gold lettering. I pulled up the school's website too, cross-referenced a few of the names I'd seen under Lilo's sketches. None of them came up. Not one. No public records, no alumni listings, no graduation photos. It was like they'd never been part of the school. Or like they'd been erased after being let go. I looked back at the sketch Lilo had drawn of me. I could still see it in my mind, the way the spiral behind my head seemed to bend the space around it, the way the shading made it look like I was being pulled into something, absorbed. That's when I saw it. Someone had written in my notebook, not my handwriting, thin, angled like it had been scratched in haste but still perfectly formed. He drew the truth. So they erased her frame. They were looking for answers. I stared at the line for a long time. Frame like a picture frame, a film frame, or maybe a person's place in the story. The next morning, I went looking for Lilo. I checked the dining hall, the classrooms, the arts wing. Nothing. I asked 2 students. They looked at me like I was speaking nonsense. I asked a faculty member. He furrowed his brow and told me there was no student by that name. I went back to the front office, heart pounding. I asked to see the roster. Mrs. Molopo appeared again, as if summoned. "There is no Lilo on our current list," she said, calmly, firmly. "I met her yesterday," I insisted. "She showed me her sketchbook. You walked in on us." She didn't even blink. "Miss," she said, lowering her voice, "I think the travel and time zone shift have taken a toll. You've only just arrived." "No, I've been here 2 nights." She shook her head. "No, dear, today's your first full day." I looked at her, cold creeping into my spine. My notebook was in my bag. I reached for it. The page was blank. The spiral drawing, gone. The scribbled message, gone. But faintly, I could still see the pressure marks on the paper, like it had been erased, like it had been rehearsed out of the page. I closed the book slowly. Something inside me shifted. Not fear, not yet, but something worse. The feeling that I'd been written into something, and someone was already editing my lines. I looked out the window. The curtains across the performance hall were drawn tight now. A light flickered behind them, like a stage cue. And I couldn't help but think, if Lilo was never on the list, how long before I wasn't either? Chapter 3. No mirrors in the dorms. I didn't sleep that night. I lay under the thin, overly tucked-in blanket, staring at the ceiling as the hours slipped by, too afraid to close my eyes, not because of what I might see, but because of what I might forget. I kept going over the conversation with Mrs. Malapo, over her calm denial of Lilo's existence, her steady voice insisting this was my first full day. I knew what I'd seen, I knew what I'd heard, but the school had this way of softening things, smoothing them out, like an eraser being dragged slowly, steadily across your memory, until all that's left is a vague pressure where something used to be. By sunrise, I needed air. I left the room and walked down the path behind the guest wing, past the art building and the courtyard. No one else was out. The sky was cracked open just enough to show pink behind the clouds. The air smelled like dust and something faintly chemical, like sterilized rooms trying to pass for fresh air. I went to the main dormitory building where the students lived. The door was unlocked. Maybe someone had forgotten to bolt it. Maybe I wasn't supposed to be there, but I pushed it open anyway. Inside, everything was quiet. The walls were lined with photographs, girls receiving awards, hugging each other, smiling. Too many smiles, too many teeth. It looked curated, like stock footage dressed up as nostalgia. The hallway curved, then split into two corridors. I followed the one on the right and peeked into the first bathroom I found. No mirror, just a wall where one should have been. The tile was a slightly different shade in that spot, like a square had once been there and was ripped off. Even the metal clips that would have held it were gone. I checked another bathroom, same thing. And another. That's when the custodian found me. He was pushing a wide mop bucket and looked too old for the job. Skin sun-darkened, eyes rimmed in yellow. He wore no name tag, just the same dark blue overalls as the other staff. He didn't ask who I was or why I was there, just kept mopping, slow and steady, the wheels of the bucket squeaking with every step. "Looking for something?" he asked without turning his head. I hesitated, just noticing. There aren't any mirrors in this building. He let the mop rest against the wall and looked at me then. Really looked. His eyes were watery but sharp, like they'd seen too much and still hadn't decided what to do with it. "Not allowed," he said. "Well, because the girl said she saw someone in hers that wasn't her." I felt the hairs rise along the back of my neck. "What girl?" He shrugged. "Don't know. They said she made it up, that she was seeing reflections that didn't follow." He leaned closer. "She said it blinked before she did. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until I had to let it go." "Did she leave?" I asked. "No," he said softly. "She was let go." That phrase again, let go? He picked the mop back up and started moving again, slowly down the hallway. I stood there for a long time, just staring at the spot where the mirror should have been. I couldn't explain it, but the absence of a mirror felt louder than if one had been there, like something had been removed to make space for something else, something that didn't want to be seen directly. Back outside, I wandered toward the performance hall. The curtains were still drawn, same as yesterday, but I thought I saw a flicker of movement inside. A shape. Maybe just a shadow, maybe something more. I moved closer to the window, cupping my hands against the glass. Nothing. Just a dimly lit stage with a single chair in the center. No one on it, no sound. But something about the space felt active, like the air inside was waiting for a cue. Later that afternoon, I asked if I could leave. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I needed to get out. I told the woman at the front office that I was feeling unwell, that I might cut the visit short. She nodded politely, checked her clipboard, then tapped something into her terminal. "Your access pass is not eligible for departure," she said. I blinked. "What?" She rotated the screen just slightly so I could see. A red banner blinked across my file. "Cycle not complete. Observer pending." I pointed to it. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer, just handed the card back and said, "You'll need clearance from the headmistress. She's unavailable this week." But I was only supposed to be here 2 days. Cycles are not measured in days. Her voice was pleasant, calm, robotic. I left the office and walked straight to the front gate. The same guard was there, still wearing the same expression, like someone who'd once been wide awake and was now surviving on borrowed time. "I need to leave," I said, holding out my pass. "Something's wrong here." He scanned it, waited. "Seymour, cycle not complete," he said quietly, eyes on the screen. "You said that when I arrived. What cycle? I never agreed to anything." He didn't answer, just handed the card back. "There must be some mistake." "There's never a mistake," he said. "Only early arrivals." I was starting to sweat. My mouth felt dry. "Please," I said, "just let me call someone. Let me contact." "No outside calls from this terminal. You'll be escorted back now." He pressed a button, and the small side gate clicked open. 2 women appeared a minute later, both in Navy uniforms, both expressionless. They didn't grab me, they didn't threaten me, just walked beside me like guards escorting a performer backstage for their scene. That night, I tried the windows. They didn't open. I checked the door. No lock from either side. The spiral symbol on my badge had changed color. It shimmered now, faintly gold in certain light. I stared at it for hours, hoping it might mean something, hoping maybe it was a countdown. A phase, something that would end. Just after midnight, I walked to the far end of the guest wing, where the glass hallway overlooked the practice fields. Everything outside was dark, except the windows. Not the lights, the windows. They reflected the hallway faintly, but wrong. The reflections were slightly slower, or maybe I was moving too fast. I waved. The reflection followed, but then blinked. Teasing. I hadn't blinked. I stood perfectly still. Sighted the reflection. Moved my hand an inch to the left. The reflection didn't move. I backed away. Back to my room. Back under the tin blanket. I turned my notebook face down on the desk just in case. I closed the curtains tight. But all night, I heard the faint sound of humming again. The same tune from the morning before. Only this time, I knew it wasn't a recording. It was inside the walls. I whispered into the dark just to hear my own voice. "I'm still me," I said, but part of me wasn't sure. And the reflection might not agree. Chapter 4. Final performance. Reflection. Compliant. It started with the humming again. Same as before, but this time it came from inside my room. Not the walls, not the hallway, right behind me. I turned so fast I knocked my notebook off the desk. There was nothing there. No speaker, no intercom, just that same faint hum, fading like breath pressed to glass. I told myself I was imagining it, but I didn't believe that. Not anymore. I needed answers. Not polite smiles, not cycles, not metaphors wrapped in rules. I needed to know what they were doing here, what they were hiding, and what happened to girls like Lilo. So I stopped following the schedule. I skipped the guided tour of the leadership garden. I ignored the invitation to observe a mock debate in the media room. Instead, I waited until the late afternoon, when the sun hung low enough to cast the western wing in shadow, and slipped through the side path toward the oldest part of campus. The part no one ever mentioned. The part I wasn't supposed to see. The maintenance wing. The walls here were weathered, paint chipping, windows dusty enough to blur the light. The hallway was narrower, quieter, doors without labels, floors that creaked. I counted 4 locked rooms before I found one that gave. The door didn't open easily. It scraped against the frame like it had swollen shut and wasn't used to visitors anymore. Inside, the smell hit first: paper rot, mold, and something faintly electrical, like burnt wiring. The room was packed with filing cabinets, storage boxes, and what looked like old AV equipment stacked against the far wall. One fluorescent bulb blinked overhead, struggling to stay alive. I slipped inside, closed the door behind me, and began to look. The cabinets weren't organized in any way I could follow. Some were empty, Others held rusted badges, retired staff logs, or broken projector slides. But in the far left corner, tucked between two boxes labeled Performance Hall Schematics, I found it. A metal drawer, locked, but someone had already cracked it open. The latch bent, like it had been forced in a hurry. Inside were file folders marked in red ink, non-complicant rehearsals. My stomach dropped. I pulled one folder out and laid it across a dusty table. Each document inside was typed, clipped with an old photograph. Girls, different years, all with the same neutral expression. Each page followed a format. Subject ID followed by a number. Followed by vague phrasing like failure to maintain posture during emotional rehearsal or inconsistent facial performance during parental visit simulation. Corrective method. Sometimes blank. Sometimes marked as reset attempted. Sometimes just a scribbled spiral. Over and over, the same types of reports, notes about eye contact, body language, emotional timing. But this wasn't drama class. These were girls being punished for not performing obedience, for not being able to smile when they were supposed to, for speaking out of rhythm, for breaking character. One note chilled me more than the others. It was dated 11 years ago. No student name, just a drawing of a face, done in charcoal, and beneath it, scrawled in the margin, reflected before instructed. Smile was out of sequence, cycle incomplete. I kept going. Near the back of the drawer, behind a stack of yellowed envelopes, I found a plastic case, charred at the edges, melted slightly on one side. A VHS tape, no label except for a handwritten line on the case. Reflection, rehearsal failed cycle. I stared at it for a while. My hands didn't want to touch it. My brain didn't want to admit I was already looking for a player. But I found one. An old combination unit with a built-in screen, dusty but intact, perched on a shelf behind a stack of maintenance logs. I plugged it in. The light flickered red. The machine whirred softly, like it had just woken from a long sleep. I pushed the tape in. It didn't play at first. The screen crackled, then went black, then buzzed. And then, slowly, the image came into focus. The girl sat in the center of a plain, white room. No windows, no furniture, just a chair. She wore a white dress, too formal for a classroom. Her hair was slicked back. She was maybe 13. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap. Voice, flat, mechanical, came from off-screen. Begin reflection compliance sequence. The girl didn't move. The voice repeated, louder. Begin sequence. She blinked, looked at something off camera, then tried to smile. But it didn't last. Her mouth trembled. The smile faded. Her chin quivered like she was about to cry. Reset. The tape cut. New scene. Same girl. Same chair. This time she was already crying, silently, tears running down her cheeks. But she was still trying to smile. She did. She held the smile for almost 30 seconds, even as her lips shook and her shoulders tensed. You may blink. She blinked. You may cry. Or tears. No sound. You may perform sadness. She began to sob, but it felt wrong, rehearsed, like she was being told how to be broken. The screen crackled again. The final image was of her looking straight into the camera. And behind her, just barely visible in the reflection of the glossy floor, was another figure, blurred, standing, head tilted, watching. The tape ended. I sat there for a long time, breathing hard, hand clenched around the edge of the desk. My reflection in the dark screen stared back at me. My face pale, my lips parted, but the shape of my shoulders looked off. I stood. I turned. No one was there. I ejected the tape, slipped it back in the case. I wanted to destroy it, but something in me said that if I did, it wouldn't stay gone. On my way out, I noticed a file folder I hadn't seen before, not in the drawer, on the floor, like it had fallen or been tossed. It was labeled Observer Notes, Cycle 4. That was my cycle. Inside was a single sheet of paper. My photo, the one from my work badge, from years ago. Below it, subject arrived early, reflection responsive, role integration pending, final performance pending approval. In red ink at the bottom, refuses to smile on cue, recommend compliance rehearsal. I backed out of the room like it might swallow me whole. I didn't close the drawer, I didn't turn off the machine, I just left. Outside, the sun had dipped lower than I realized. The shadows stretched long, fingers dragging across the brick paths. I passed a group of girls walking in perfect step. None of them looked at me. But in one of the windows, high up near the top of the performance hall, I saw my reflection, and it smiled. I didn't. Chapter 5. The sketches started repeating. I found him sitting behind the art building, in a patch of dead grass near the maintenance sheds where the pipes screamed at night. The same custodian who told me about the mirrors. He wasn't in uniform this time, just a faded gray sweatshirt and old shoes with the soles half coming off. He sat still, like the earth around him had stopped spinning, and he was the only thing left, waiting for permission to move again. I hadn't meant to find him. I was just walking in circles, trying not to look at windows or listen too closely to my own thoughts. But when I saw him there, something in me pulled toward him, like gravity or instinct, or maybe just desperation. "You shouldn't be out here," I said. He didn't answer for a while, just watched the clouds roll in from behind the auditorium roof. "I know who you are," he said. It stopped me cold. He looked at me, not smiling, not threatening, just certain. "You came early. They don't like early arrivals. Makes the timing off." "Who are you?" I asked. He pulled a small cardboard box closer to him, like a pet he'd been hiding under his arm. When he opened the lid, I saw them. Sketchbooks. Old, tattered, some with ribbons sticking out, some bloated from water damage, all of them worn like they'd been held too tight by someone who didn't want to let go. "I was a cleaner," he said. "Back when the school first opened. Before the smiley became mandatory. Before the rehearsals were labeled." He handed me one of the sketchbooks. I started saving them when I noticed they weren't being returned to the girls, just tossed, burned sometimes, shredded, like the memory didn't belong to them anymore. I opened the cover. The first drawing was of a red door, heavy, thick, bolted from the outside. Next page, a spiral staircase, no handrails, no end in sight. Just a girl standing at the top, staring down like she'd dropped something important and wasn't sure if she wanted it back. Next, a classroom, but wrong. No windows, no doors, just desks in a circle and shadows cast in directions that didn't match any light source. Next, a girl, always facing away. Every few pages, the girl appeared again, the same small frame, the same uniform, hair braided neatly, shoulders slightly hunched. Sometimes she stood in front of a wall, sometimes in a hallway, once in front of a tall mirror that reflected nothing. I flipped further and felt my chest go tight. It was me, drawn in pencil, standing in the hallway outside my room. My hair, my shoes, even the way I carry one shoulder lower than the other, all of it. Above me, sketched in pale gray, was the spiral symbol, floating, like it had always been there. I'd just never looked up. I looked at him. "They've drawn you in now," he said. "That means it's your scene next." I closed the book, fingers trembling. "What does that mean?" "They don't just rehearse the girls," he said. They rehearse the observers too, the visitors, the ones who come looking, even if they don't know why they're looking, especially those ones. He reached into the box and pulled another sketchbook out, this one labeled 2009. He opened it to a marked page and turned it toward me. Another drawing of the classroom without exits. Another girl, back turned. But in the margin, in shaky handwriting, someone had scrawled. She said she came to tell the truth, but they cast her in it instead. I did backed up. I need to leave, I said. They won't let you, and why can't keep me? They don't keep you, he said. They rewrite you. I turned to leave, heart thudding. Calm more thing, he said. I stopped. You'll wake up marked. It's how they bring you into the frame. You won't remember drawing it, but it'll be there. You'll see. I didn't answer. I just walked away, faster than I meant to, not looking back. That night, I locked the door. I double-checked the windows. I placed the sketchbook I'd taken from him, yes, I took one, inside a drawer and wrapped it in my jacket. Then I lay in bed with the lights on and told myself that sleep was a choice, that I wouldn't give in. But at some point, I did. And when I woke up, my right hand was stained. Ink black smudged around the fingernails, a streak across my palm. I sat up, heart in my throat. The jar was open. The sketchbook was open. And on the page, freshly drawn, was a new scene. My bed, my face, my eyes open. But behind me, in the mirror above the desk, the mirror that wasn't supposed to exist, was a second figure. Smiling and holding a pen. Chapter 6. She was let go, but she never left. I wasn't trying to find anything that morning. I wasn't even sure what I was still doing there. After the sketch, after the ink, after the reflection, I should have been screaming, clawing at the walls, demanding to be released. But the longer I stayed, the more I felt like something inside me was getting quieter. Not calmer, just muted. Like I was being lulled into stillness, framed. So I walked. That's all I did. I wandered the campus in wide loops, pretending I was just a lost visitor, that I still believed I was just observing. I ended up near the nurse's garden, a small courtyard hidden behind the infirmary, full of overgrown herbs and low wooden benches, the kind of place that once had a purpose but had been forgotten for too long. There was a shovel leaning against a pot of dead lavender. And I don't know why, but I picked it up. I walked to a patch of disturbed earth near the back where the weeds had been flattened in a way that felt deliberate. I dug. Slowly, quietly. Like I'd done it before. The first thing I found was a shoe. A girl's shoe. Polished leather, one strap buckled, the other broken. Then, a little deeper, I hid plastic. The cracked, dirt-covered audio recorder, the kind you'd find in an old language lab or hidden at the bottom of a nurse's desk drawer. I wiped it off with the sleeve of my jacket. The buttons were stiff, the screen shattered, but it still clicked when I pressed play. A faint hiss. Then a voice. Small, hoarse, like it hadn't been used in a long time. My name used to be something, but they took it, said it didn't fit the program. Said names were too loud. I froze, crouched in the dirt. I wasn't expelled. I didn't run away. I didn't misbehave. I just asked. I asked where they took the others. The ones who missed cues. The ones who didn't smile on time. The ones who cried before permission was given. A rustle of static. Then the voice returned, softer. They called it being let go. Not expelled, not punished. Just let go. Like a balloon, but not into the sky. Down, always down. There was a pause. I swear I heard breathing. Not just hers. Someone else's. Behind her. Or behind me. You remember it as a time and the schedule. I found the room. Once. The rehearsal room. It's underground. No doors, just lights that blink when you move wrong, a voice that tells you to start again and again until you forget what your real face feels like. A sharp exhale. I thought if I stayed quiet, they wouldn't see me. I thought if I didn't blink, maybe they'd forget I was here. But they don't forget. They memorize every twitch, every breath, every mistake. The wind picked up around me in the garden. The lavender trembled. They make you rehearse kindness. They make you perform gratitude. And if you don't do it right, if you pause too long between lines, if your tears come out too early, they write you out, but not all the way. Just enough to keep you near. Just enough to make you watch. The voice cracked then, like something inside it had splintered. She's still here, the one who asked first. She's not in the files. She's not in the sketches. But she watches through the glass, through the cameras that aren't plugged in, through the mirrors they buried. The static grew louder, the sound twisted, like the recorder was warping under the pressure of the words. She rehearses with the new ones, in silence, in shadows. She never speaks, but she smiles, always smiles, like someone taught her that was the only way to be remembered. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then, finally, the last words, a whisper so thin I almost missed it. She's still here. She's watching the new ones rehearse. The tape clicked off. I stood up slowly, the recorder in my shaking hand. The sun had dipped behind the trees, casting the garden in shadow. The air felt heavy, damp, like something had just passed through and hadn't fully gone. I walked back toward the infirmary, but the building was locked. No lights, no sound. I turned around, and for just a second in the window beside the bench, the reflection of someone standing behind me. Not moving, just watching. Called when I turned. Noiling. I looked down at the recorder and saw my name scratched faintly into the back panel. Not printed, not taped, scratched. It hadn't been there before, and below my name a new word appeared, like the plastic had shifted to reveal it. Pending. Pending what? I didn't know. But somewhere below my feet, I swear, I felt the floor thrum, not with footsteps, but with a rhythm. A cue. Chapter 7. They were never missing. They were memorized. By now, I had stopped pretending to be part of anything. I didn't follow the schedules, didn't show up for the closing conversation with the education director, and definitely didn't respond to the folded notes left outside my door each morning, typed in the same cool font. Today's cues: observe, absorb, I tore the last one in half without even opening it. The school had gotten too quiet. The hallways weren't just empty. They felt prepared, like someone had cleared them on purpose, so I could walk through alone. I no longer passed girls between classes. I didn't hear pianos from the practice room. Even the air felt filtered, like the performance had paused and the audience was waiting for me to take the next line. So I did. At dusk, I went to the one building no one had shown me, the old administrative block, not the new front office. This one was at the far edge of campus, down a sloped hill where the ground went from carefully groomed grass to raw dirt and cracked brick. The front door was chained shut, but one of the side windows was loose. I climbed through. The inside smelled like the rest of the school used to, lemon cleaner and fake eucalyptus, but under that was something mustier, older, like film reels that had been locked in a vault for too long. I walked down the main corridor, flashlight in hand. The walls were lined with closed doors, most of them sealed or empty, Then I found one at the end that looked newer than the others, recently painted, metal reinforcement around the handle. No knob, just a scanner. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the pass card I hadn't used in days, the laminated one with the spiral faintly embossed. I tapped it. The door clicked open. Inside was a single room, colder than the rest, with walls that curved slightly inward. The air buzzed faintly. It wasn't a hum, it was the low electrical sound of projectors. Dozens of them. They sat on shelves built into the walls, all aimed toward the far side of the room, where a curved projection screen wrapped the corner. On that screen, images were rotating in a slow, automated sequence, black and white portraits, one by one. No names, just girls. Different years, different uniforms, but the same pose. Shoulders back, eyes forward, smile just wide enough to seem natural. But it wasn't natural. I knew that smile. I'd seen it in the tape. I'd seen it on the sketches. It was the smile you give when they've rehearsed the sadness out of you. Some of the images were older, cracked around the edges. Others looked recent, too recent. A few even looked unfinished. The girls in them were partially faded, like the frame hadn't been fully drawn. He moved closer. On a desk beneath the screen sat a small terminal, glowing dim blue. Next to it, a file folder, plain brown, unlabeled. I opened it. The first page had my photo at the top, a copy of my work ID from the clinic. Same hair, same unsure smile. Subject, investigator. Role integration, memory conscious. Cycle assignment 5. Status, observation completed. Next step, participation pending. I flipped the page. Came looking for truth. We gave him a role. Beneath that, scribbled in red ink. All observers eventually memorize. The memory makes them stay. I took a step back. The projection screen flickered. The slideshow paused. A new image loaded. Me. Same shirt, same hair, same exact expression I'd seen in the mirror that morning. Behind my head, a faint spiral symbol, not drawn, imposed, like it had been branded onto the image. And under the image, in pale gray letters almost too light to see, feeling reflective, compliant. I stepped forward again, heart hammering. My legs felt hollow. I reached for the power button on the terminal. The image didn't stop. The projector buzzed louder. Then, in a glitch, or maybe a reveal, the background of the photo shifted. What had once been a hallway now became something else. The red door, the spiral staircase, the room without exits, all of them stitched together into a single frame. A rehearsal set. Who was inside it? I always had been. I stumbled back, knocking over a stool. It clattered across the floor. My breathing sounded too loud now, or maybe the room had gotten quieter. The air pressed in from all sides. The lights on the projectors dimmed. Then, one by one, they began to shut off. Before the last one flickered out, the image shifted again, this time to a wide shot. A girl standing on stage, in a white dress, back turned, facing a crowd that couldn't be seen. The chair beside her was empty, but my name was carved into it. I bolted from the room, heart slamming against my ribs. I didn't care how loud I was. I didn't care if someone saw me. I just ran, back up the hill, across the stone paths, past the performance hall where the curtains were now open. The stage was lit, but no one was on it. Not yet. When I reached my room, the door was open. My notebook was gone. On the bed, neatly folded, was a white dress. My size. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat felt sewn shut. On the mirrorless wall, someone had written, in that same sharp handwriting, they were never missing. They were memorized. I closed my eyes and saw the projector again. not showing me the truth. Rehearse me into it, and the spiral spun, slow and steady, behind my eyelids, like it was waiting for me to blink on cue. Chapter 8. I wasn't the investigator, I was the rehearsal. Here in that, I don't know where to begin. It's been 3 days since I left the academy, or maybe it was 3 hours. Maybe I never left at all. I'm in a motel now, somewhere outside Johannesburg. I don't remember booking the room. The key was already in the lock when I got here. Room 4. No front desk, no manager, just a plastic ice bucket and a vending machine that hums too loud. The bathroom mirror fogs on its own, even when the shower isn't running. I've been sitting on the tile floor, recording into this handheld mic like it's some kind of anchor, but my voice sounds different in the playback. Slower, hollow, like it's been copied too many times. There's something wrong with my memory. I found my sketchpad zipped into my duffel bag last night. I didn't pack it, I know I didn't, but it's here, and every page is filled. Not just with notes or drawings, but things I don't remember making. Whole scenes, pages and pages of charcoal sketches. A girl with no face standing behind a curtain. A staircase that loops in on itself. A spotlight with no source. And always, a stage. On the last page, written in thick black ink, are 3 words. Final performance pending. I tried to upload the footage I recorded from the school. I had my camera. I had the files. I connected the drive to my laptop, opened the folder, and everything was renamed. Reflection_compliant MP4. Cycle 5_integration at observer_archive_closed.mkv. Even the timestamps are wrong. All of them say June 4, 2025, 4:44 a.m. That's today. That's right now. I tried to play one of the videos. It was my face. Me standing in front of the academy gate. Only I wasn't speaking. I was smiling, holding the pass. And in the background, almost hidden in the shadows of the stone pillars, there was someone else. Same uniform as the girls, just standing, watching, face blurred like a photograph smudged by thumbprints. It can't stop shaking. The mirror in the bathroom fogs over every 20 minutes. It doesn't matter what I do. I've cleaned it, smashed the vent, turned off the faucet. The fog still creeps in, from the edges inward, like something exhaling slowly just on the other side. And when it clears, there are symbols, drawn in reverse, so I only see them when the steam lifts. Spirals, a red door, a single line of text that repeats more often now. Reflection compliance cycle complete. I keep wiping it away. It keeps coming back. I tried calling someone, anyone, my sister, my coworker, even the travel agent who booked my ticket. No signal. My phone works, it just doesn't connect. I went outside once, just once, to see if I was really out, really free. The streets were empty. No birds, no cars, no people. The sky looked wrong, like it was stretched, too close. I ran back inside. When I closed the door, the sketch pad was open again. Same final drawing. But now the faceless girl on stage is holding a microphone. Filmed in the audience, row after row of seats, I can see outlines of people drawn in faint pencil. Just outlines, like they haven't been filled in yet, like they're waiting to be cast. The girl has started to turn around. Not all the way, just enough. And I swear, I recognize the way her shoulders curve, the way her hands hold the microphone. It's me. It's May. They let me go. But they kept my memory. And that's the real performance. In the vlog,